question that I really want to ask you is, I mean, I just want to go back from the very beginning and ask you about your childhood and upbringing. I mean, since you played professionally for 11 years, what beliefs did your parents teach you at a very young age that allowed you to, I guess, confidently pursue and compete at a professional level?
Yeah, my parents were both originally from working class backgrounds in
Okay.
an area in the UK, in Leeds, two sort of quite rough areas. My mother was from Irish heritage, um,
Okay.
and they had a solid work ethic themselves and did well for themselves. My mother was went on to be a midwife, and a successful midwife that got promoted over the years, managed the team of staff. My father originally worked in sales, but
Oh
came
wow.
from
Okay.
to managerial level. So they had solid work ethic and beliefs in them, but also family orientated.
Hmm.
So I was the youngest of two boys. So from my point of view, I had a big brother who was 3 years older than me that I always aspired to sort of be like, always aspired to compete with.
Wow.
And we were both brought up to work hard, and that was in school.
Yeah.
Do your best in school, work hard, and if if you weren't doing well in something, but you were showing your application and dedication, that
Mm.
was kind of good enough for them. So them
Wow.
values
Okay.
were sort of instilled early on, and I think this stayed with me throughout my life. But they also taught me to sort of chase my dreams, really, and that was for
Wow.
myself
Okay.
and my brother. And I think that's important. I think particularly my father was probably quite into psychology, although it wouldn't have been worded as psychology from an early age, and maybe with that sort of his salesman type techniques.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think he was very big into, if you believe in something, go chase your dreams, have no regrets, and if you believe in it and work hard, don't be surprised if it sort of manifests itself.
Wow. Okay. And that's very interesting that you said, because now, I mean, at least from my experience, I've heard and seen that parents are telling their players, "Hey, you can do anything you want." But when it really comes for the child to pursue their dreams, whether it's professional soccer, being a lawyer, starting a business, whatever it is, they're almost like told to, "Hey, I want you to stop doing that because I don't want to see you fail." Right. And so I think that what you said is super important. I mean, would you say then just the work ethic was like the main important thing that they instilled in you from your father and your mother? Or would you say there was another characteristic that helped you, I guess, along the way to not only be scared, but to, say, hey, I'm all in into this. This is what I want.
Yeah, I'd say the work ethic is a standout one.
Okay.
And again,
Work
I,
ethic.
I echo what I said previously, in the fact that there was a thing of, if you want something badly enough, go get it,
Yep.
and take control of your own destiny, and go get what it is you want. But also they were very honest,
Oh,
um,
wow. Okay.
and and I think in comparison to today's day and age, you'd certainly describe them as strict, very
Mm.
very loving. So there was certainly a strong foundation of love there, and TLC that was required. But I think that foundation meant that there could be some tough conversations, and and even along the period, I think we all kind of have this look back and rose-tinted spectacles that we've always dedicated and worked everything that we could. But I'm sure if I look back on times when, if ever there was periods where maybe the output in training or in games, etc., wasn't of the standard, the point back to the process and pick up on the times when maybe I was going to bed late, or maybe I wasn't
Wow.
doing as many reps on certain techniques as I
Yeah.
could be, and to internalize that process. So again, it's so easy to get caught up and blame other people, and
Mm-hmm.
deal with things outside of your control. But from an early age, it was control the controllables. Don't
Wow.
come home and talk about so and so doesn't like me, so and so prefers that person over me, the teacher is on at me,
Yeah.
or it weren't my fault, my pencil snapped. Not good enough. It was a case of take care and take ownership of what is in your responsibility and in your control.
Yeah. So really at such a young age, you were taught to, hey, almost start developing that no excuse mentality. Like, just because I think this, it may not be true, right? Maybe, like you said, you may feel like you're not good enough, but control what you can control, which is taking responsibility for your actions. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay. So let's say, like, if you and I were growing up together, all right, we went to school together, we were friends, we played soccer together. What kind of soccer player do you think you were? And what was your way of thinking at 9 years old? And how did it change from you being, let's say, 16 to 17 years old?
Yeah, good question. I think if where I ended up as a player, and I'll get back to your question, where I ended up as a player was a no-nonsense central defender who
Okay.
was a stopper, if you like. Now, when I was younger, in I believed I was a lot more skillful, and that was probably comparative to my peers at school, etc. Um, and again, at 9, you'd kind of play sort of recreational football on a patch of grass, in the playground, that type of unsupervised football with mixed ability players. Um, so, in comparison to my peers at school, I felt as if I was a skillful player. I could travel with a ball. Um, it weren't until I was older I realised my skill level in terms of technical ability was not to the level it should be. But certainly
Okay.
around my school and people would have suggested I had good skills because again I could go past players.
Yeah.
But whilst I wasn't an early developer, I certainly was always tall. I mean, I'm 6'3" now. I was
Wow.
always quite tall and was always quite athletic at school, and I'd win school sports days. So the athletic side of me in comparison to my peers at school was
Yeah.
strong. Um, so hopefully that answers your question. I mean, in terms of when we went into organised football,
Yeah.
not sort of grassroots level, so it
Mhm.
weren't elite, it was mass participation. Um, Played in central midfield, and I was kind of sort of a box to box midfielder.
Mhm.
Receive the ball in the tight generally, get us up the pitch, score goals, make goals, and stop goals. I was
Mhm.
quite tough in the tackle,
Mhm.
but certainly at grassroots level, I was sort of generally an all-round player.
Okay.
And like I say, it weren't until I was a bit older that maybe as the bar went higher, that my
Mm,
deficiencies technically sort of started to come to the fore, if you like.
yeah. Okay. Yes. So I guess let me just word it a little bit different. When I say, like, your way of changing from 9 to 15, like, some players from 9, all they care about is just having fun and winning and, getting together with friends. And I wanted to ask that to see, okay, Richard, the 9-year-old player, was he the fun type, wanted to have fun, or was he already looking into competing and becoming a professional, or did that come later?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I loved I always wanted to play football. Always.
Okay.
From that sort of age you're talking. So from 8, 9, I wanted to go out and play with my friends.
Okay.
But without a shadow of a doubt, whilst I wanted to enjoy my football, I was a competitor,
Okay.
and I wanted to win. And we'd have a game in England that we'd call Wembley, whether it be
Yeah.
Wembley singles, doubles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the basic concept, but there'd be one person in goal and you play. And listen, I wanted to win without a shadow of a doubt. Now, my desire to go and play with my friends when I was inside and we were arranging the game of football, my desire was because I wanted to play, I wanted the ball on my feet, I wanted to
Wow.
practice, I wanted to engage with my friends. However, once we were there, I always wanted to win, and that
Yeah.
wasn't just at football. That was in general,
Yeah.
in general sports or games of any nature. So there was certainly an element of fun. The environment we had as mates, we'd always be creative with the games we'd set up. But without a shadow of a doubt, I was a competitor for sure.
Wow. Okay. Now that's what I was looking for. Okay. So now this one, I mean, you kind of answered it already, but really, when would you say you made that decision to say, okay, this is why I want to become a professional and this is what I'm going to do? Like, at what sort of age did you make it? And also, the second part is, what did you have to sacrifice to become a professional that would not be showcased on social media today?
Okay. In terms of wanting to be a professional footballer, from my first game I ever went to, I thought, "Boy, I'd fancy a bit of that." Playing in front of live fans, big full stadiums.
Yeah.
You know, I always fancy a bit of that without really having a massive amount of belief that that could be done. You know, I was from a small village, and you kind of think, well, the world's such a big place, and
Yeah.
people in big cities can go and achieve that, not necessarily people in these small bubbles, small villages, should I say.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I kind of started going into a professional academy at sort of 12, 13, or playing against people who were getting a reputation as potential professional players, playing against them and going, actually, I'm as good, better in some areas, or I can make up the ground on players that were ahead of me. And that was probably at the age of sort of 12, 13, 14.
Wow.
Um, and then once I realised that could be achieved, it was then an obsession. I'm going to make this happen.
Wow.
Now, whilst and I also recognise the dedication of people around me. So my parents driving me to training and the sacrifice they were putting in, the weekends they were giving up, and it's like, no, you got to make this happen now, because too many people are putting in a lot for you. You've got to make this happen, or
Wow.
certainly do everything you can to make this happen. So yeah. Now, what I would say along the journey, rest assured there were periods of self-doubt. So particularly in them years, I was a spotty teenager. I had acne. I was gangly. I was awkward and uncomfortable in my body. You know, some would say I still am, but no, there's then periods when you're going through growth and puberty, and you can feel
Wow.
awkward. You know, so there's periods of self-doubt and that you have to go through along the way.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, does that answer your question? There's a second part
No,
of it I can't recall.
for sure. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. Like things that you would never think a player that became professional would share, like um problems with body image or stuff like that. Maybe it's like lack of self-doubt, because even though you said, hey, I had a dream, but then I turned it into a healthy obsession and I was like, yes, I'm going to make everything happen, it didn't mean I was always 100%, full on I believe in myself and believe in myself, because there's times when, yeah, you could go even weeks when you're fully believe in yourself, but then sometimes you could go days, weeks, or even months where you're like, crap, is this really for me? Do I have it in me? And like you said, I grew up in a small town. Like you start to lose a belief in yourself. And now more than ever, because like everything is more like, I want it now, right? I want everything now. With everything at the tips of our fingertips, it's getting easier to, I guess, develop a long-term mentality. That makes sense?
100%, without a doubt. And I think it's kind of, people would be willing to put in the hard work and the process and the dedication if they were 100% adamant that the rewards would come at the end of it.
Wow.
Now, the problem is, because you've just said that the potential is a danger of, I want immediate response for this hard work,
Yeah.
that people can kind of waver and give in, or think, well, I'm not sure. I think you've just got to go for it 100%,
Yeah.
and trust the process. And if you do fall short, well, you've done everything you can, and if you don't quite make the level you want to get at, you'll certainly be there or thereabouts,
Yeah.
within reason.
For sure. Okay, so now moving on, I mean, transitioning into the coaching and then into the confidence part. Like confidence is a key factor into determining a player's success. Let's say I'm a player, I'm currently lacking self-confidence. Let's say I'm 12 years old, 13 years old, and I'm lacking confidence to perform on the soccer field. From your experience, from your time playing and now coaching, why do you think I would be lacking confidence? Obviously, there's probably different multiple variables. It could be family issues. Maybe, like you said, maybe I don't see myself as a player with potential. Why do you think I would be lacking confidence, and what piece of advice would you give me?
Okay. Listen, it could be a number of reasons.
Yeah,
It could be a number of reasons, as you just alluded to. I think if I took it back to my own experiences,
yeah,
first as a player, and then I'll talk about as a coach. I think if I talk about my own experiences, it would be, um, I always feel, and even now on the journey I'm on now, I've always had a good level of self-belief. However, there'll be periods of doubt, and in my experience, them moments of doubt are just before you go to the next level, and whatever that is. So if you stepped up and you go, wow, these players around me, this is different. They're quicker, they're faster, they're stronger, they've got better technique. And then as humans, we're born to survive and born to adapt. That's how we've been created. So we will adapt, and we will evolve, and we will get to grips with it. And ultimately, the secret is just to keep working hard. So accept that there'll be pros and cons for confidence, but also make sure you don't lose sight of what your standout attribute is, what you're good at, what makes you a good player, and what are the things you do well when you are playing your best games, and try and remember those things, and so that would be my thing as recollection as a player. But then as a coach, and for any coaches out there listening, it's so easy to think that coaching is about fixing people's problems and
Yeah.
improving the areas of deficiency or the weaknesses or areas to develop, improve, etc. But overlook the fact that what the super strength of that individual is. So you might have a wide player who's extremely good at 1v1 attacking,
Yeah.
but poor at defensive
Yeah.
aspects. Now, for sure, there's certain things, particularly in professional coaching, there's a certain level of the defending stuff that needs to be there. But for me, first and foremost, you've got to make sure that the environment you create enables that player to flourish and showcase their standout attribute. Because certainly within our academy, the players that we've recruited for a standout attribute first and foremost. And we've got to make sure we create an environment for them to go and express that. Come up with ways and challenges of which we can further improve that, whilst also not neglecting the areas of the game that aren't strong, that we need to improve to a baseline that allows that standout strength to come out.
Powerful stuff right there. Super powerful stuff. Okay. What would you say then true confidence consists of? What factors do you think come into place? Like, have you ever played with a confident player, team with him, or played against a player that you could just tell was like, I guess, more fearless on the field? And what do you think that impact did that player have? Like when you were teaming with him, did it elevate you? Did it maybe crush? And when you were playing against him, did it kind of like crush your team, or did it develop natural fear? What was it?
Yeah, I think confidence can come across in a variety of ways, and I think particularly, if there's younger members of the audience, particularly the teenage members,
Yeah.
there can sometimes be a bravado that seems like someone's really confident. They can
Yes,
be an
exactly.
extrovert. They can be an extrovert, really loud, quite a dominant force in the room. But there's a real vulnerability there and a real insecurity there. So, to any young teenagers who are perhaps encountering players or people that seem an intimidating force and seem to have this ultra self-belief, don't always believe that if you scratch beneath the surface, that's necessarily the case.
Wow.
Uh, some of the most sort of the people I've encountered with the greatest self-belief have kind of been just calm, just really chilled in a lot of situations. Don't necessarily need to shout the loudest. Don't necessarily need to big up their own achievements, because they'll just walk the walk, so to speak.
Yeah.
So please, young players out there listening, don't think that you're insecure because you're quiet.
Yeah.
If you've got faith in your ability, and under perceived pressure situations you can apply the basics well, and you can make the correct decisions under pressure, that's for me confidence, and that's for me self-belief. And then also finding, again, I'll go back to internalizing that thought process.
Yeah.
Don't think confidence is what other people give you. All of us will draw off other people for sure, but you've got to believe in what you can do and the process you've gone to get where you can get. Remind yourself what it is you're good at. And then also, if you're having a wobble as a player, i.e. you're not performing at your best,
Wow.
sort of just apply the basics well. Just do the basics well. Everything else takes care of itself from that point on. And again, going back to the best I've played with international players, I've played with Premier League players, and they're not always the loudest. They just have an air of authority, walk tall, stand tall, hold themselves in the correct way. And when it comes to showtime, the invariably deliver.
Yeah, because I've heard like the question then is how do you develop? I mean, part of it you said, hey, focus on the fundamentals, doing that. Because I've heard sayings where, and for you, this is for your personal experience. How familiar do you believe into the fake it till you make it saying? Like, if you don't confident, you fake you're confident, and then eventually you become it, or is that completely like out of the water? It doesn't exist.
No, I think in the right context that I get that for sure.
Yeah.
I think in the right context I get that. Um, again, I always, for me, I think under increased pressure or under pressure situations, humans will revert to type. So that will find out when the pressure's really on. Can you deliver type
Mhm.
thing? So that's when it really comes on. Now, for sure, I believe in certain things. I mean, whether it be self-talk, stuff like that, maybe visualization. I think visualization is something that as a football club and the psychology department, we encourage that for our players. So when it does come to certain situations, you've kind of encountered them in your own mind beforehand. The fake it till you make it, I think standing tall, walking tall, holding yourself in a certain way, acting in a certain way. It's, even in jobs,
Yeah.
in industry, in workplaces, don't think that you will act a certain way when you get a certain job. Start acting that way for the job that you want, in terms of
Yeah.
how you carry yourself, in terms of your punctuality, in terms of the standards you set. Don't think, well, I'm not going to act that way now because I haven't got that job. When I get that job, then I'll start coming in an hour earlier. Then I'll start doing
Yeah.
extra work. So that
Yeah.
would be my take on that.
Yeah, and that's super important what you said. The last part is start acting like if you were in that situation. Because if you don't, when you do get to that situation, let's say somehow you get it, let's say a professional, then you're like, oh wow, I'm here. What am I supposed to do? Right. And there's been times when for myself and other players, like I'll go to a different club, a higher level club, and be like, oh my God, I really wanted to make this, and now I'm here. Like you almost revert back to the way you were playing in the other club, in the lower layer club. So now almost like you're training your thinking in old patterns, and then sometimes that gets you back down because you didn't level up, I guess, with a different club. You didn't keep working, you didn't keep improving, you didn't ask for help when needed, and you didn't, like, I guess, open and develop an open mind to keep improving yourself. And so that part right there, act like you do whatever it takes, if it's getting up in the morning and saying affirmations and that's going to help you and you feel like that's helped you, well, go ahead and do it, right? But um how important then would you say is commitment to confidence, committing to the process? You say trust the process, but when I say commitment is following through on your own promises. Like if you say you're going to commit to tryout. Let's say you're going to do everything in your power to come up with the funds and go to that tryout and you fall short. What do you think what do you think that does? Would you say commitment is part of confidence?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of research behind goal setting,
Yeah.
and I'd encourage anyone who's got any aspirations to map out how that looks, what your outcome goal is, what's the North Star, where do you aspire to be that in 10, 20, 30 years time, and then trace it back from there. Have your performance goals along that way. So if it
Mhm.
is that I want to be a Champions League winner, I need to be a Premier League footballer, a Serie A footballer, a Liga footballer by X year. I then need to chart that back, and I need to be playing, under 18 professionally at this year. And then most importantly, you then chart your performance goals to get that. And for
Yeah.
me, write that down. Write that down because you're holding yourself to task.
Wow.
It's easy to sort of float ideas around because you don't hold yourself responsible.
Yeah.
For me, if you write that down, firstly that's a commitment to yourself, and you can't hide from that. You,
Exactly.
you refer back to that. You can't hide to that. So that relates to the word commitment you've said. And I'd also encourage you to share that with someone close to
Wow.
you, who will hold you to task, who will say when you've not made the tryout and you're bemoaning your luck, that they will, someone who you trust and, who you have that relationship to, who will say, well, in all fairness, if you look on your process and you look on your action plan and you look on your goal setting, one of the things was to make sure that you're in bed by 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at
Yep.
night, whatever it is. But you actually weren't. You went to that disco on that night and you stayed out. And the
Yeah.
night before you were gonna have, I don't know, pasta for tea, but you actually had a burger. You had a McDonald's or Burger King, whatever it was.
Yep.
Well, there's a lack of commitment. Now, when it
Exactly.
comes to that tryout, when the niggles of self doubt in the back of your mind that are toying with you and getting you to question yourself, they will for sure as eggs of eggs. They will be saying, well, you haven't eaten right, you haven't gone to bed properly, and that will impact performance in my experience.
Yep. And thank you for sharing that. That was actually leading to the next question. I mean, since you shared that, could you recall a time when, let's say, you made a personal commitment to yourself and for some reason you broke it with yourself? If so, what was that? Maybe it didn't have a negative impact on yourself. Maybe it did. I'm not sure. But if it did, how did that impact your ability to, I guess, think in the field and off the field about your self belief about yourself?
Yeah, good question. And one I'd say is, and I share this with the players that I'm in charge of and I work with. I share this thing because I think it's easy when you're an older, you're a man and you look back and think you don't make mistakes. But
Yep.
it's important for me, for the young players I work with, to learn off the achievements I've had, but also the mistakes, and me to share that and share that vulnerability, if you like, and the
Yeah.
weaknesses at times are shown. So one of my biggest sort of moments in my career that I look back on and go, what were you doing? And the
Yeah.
sort of thing that I'd look at, if I look back and I want to give myself a slap. And it was, I was at Port Vale, who were a club in League One at the time in England, um, and the manager. We had a game on Sky, so it was broadcast in England. So I knew all my friends and family would be watching, and the manager left me out, and he put me as sub. Now, I was always very dedicated. I was always very professional in my preparation, and my preparation was everything. On that occasion, I knew I was going to be sub the next day, and I neglected my preparation. I was negative with the manager the day before. I was negative with my teammates, and
Mm,
probably disrespectful. Whilst not being disrespectful, I was more consumed in myself and my own frustrations with the manager for not playing me. So on that evening, I didn't eat how I'd normally eat. I didn't rehydrate how I'd normally rehydrate. I didn't go through the mental process I normally would. Now, during
wow.
that game, I come on a substitute, and we were 1-0 up. I was a defender. We were 1-0 up at the time, and I come on at 1-0 up. I made two mistakes, cost the team the game. I come in after the game, and I'd only been on 20 minutes. I cost the team the game.
Wow.
Um, so I'd not followed my own rules, my own standards, and I got caught out, and that was a real good lesson. But it was a low
Yeah.
point. I remember driving home from the game, and I was like, really angry with myself and really disappointed, and I'd let a lot of people down. So there's certainly there. I'm not one to not look back and things and go, whoa, that was a big mistake you got to learn from. So that was certainly a massive one for me, Alex.
Wow. And thank you for sharing that. So since you didn't hold yourself up to those standards, you didn't follow through your commitments. the consequences, what I'm hearing is, hey, you let your team down and the people around you, and also maybe you would have cost yourself. Maybe you, in reality, you just disappointed, most importantly, yourself, right? Because it's always about you. And if you keep yourself content up to those high standards, well, then naturally the people around you will be, I guess, supported because you're keeping yourself up there. But if you fall off, well, then naturally those standards and the people around you fall off as well.
Absolutely. I think just to add to that one, I think when you're a footballer, um, sometimes you're probably more concerned with the perception of situations
Wow.
to your friends and your family than how they impact you. So throughout my career, I had periods where, lots of periods where I was dropped from the side, I was left out, I was in the team, out the team, so on and so forth. Now, when the manager at any club delivered that news to me, it was a setback. But
Wow.
more often than not, I fully understood why he was doing it.
Hmm.
I fully understood why, and I was disappointed, but I got it. I think I understood that certain player was doing better than me, certain player was better than me, or certainly in different areas. However, my biggest thing was having to relate it to your parents who it affected, your loved ones, your friends,
Yeah.
and I guess the dent in your own ego. So if I had my time again, I'd certainly park my own ego at the door and just get on with it and deal with it, because and just trust working hard, getting on with things, having a positive mindset, and where that will get you, and not worry about the perception of other people.